And but what was kind of different about it was the kind of the climax, like originally that relationship between Winnie and Bernie was sort of like very close and intimate, but it was ultimately a friendship that sort of had an implied romance. And then we ended up like once we got the performers together, Jess McLeod and Jane Widdop, and they brought
Last Christmas still haunts me.
Time to let that go.
No one cares. Everyone would be better off if I was never born. Did you see that? Did the power go out? Oh my God. I stood under the aurora and said everyone would be better off if I never existed.
able to kind of fit a few of those in.
That's fantastic. You know, I was struggling to think in the beginning. I'm like, am I watching sort of a Halloween, scary theme movie or a Christmas movie? Like, I was at a loss of genres, because it's such a blend of both. You could really go with either or. But for this time of year, being Halloween, I'm like, oh, I got a Christmas spirit vibe too from it.
Hey, it does not hurt to start early. Like I wish I'd started my Christmas shopping by now, but I always leave it last minute. But I thought that was kind of important too, because we definitely wanted to call to mind like Christmas movies in general, because they're just a huge genre, and like not only like the bigger kind of family ones, but also like this kind of industry of Hallmark and Lifetime kind of like movies of the week kind of Christmas movies. And we wanted to satirize those a little bit, and kind of play in that world and kind of have like this sort of outlandish kind of, small town villain who's got this, real estate scheme, and what would it be like if you like had a psychotic break, and so, trying to find those sorts of kind of fun ways to riff on it. And so we can set ourselves up into a slasher kind of vibe.
It's obviously, inspired by It's a Wonderful Life, but I haven't seen anything like this. I'm kind of surprised for how popular that movie is, It's a Wonderful Life, and how iconic it is, that there weren't sort of genre-bending spins from it. And this is, I think, the first one I really feel it's inspired by it, but uses the horror trope in a really clever way, with the character kind of looking over her life, what would life be without her? I'm surprised that this hasn't been done, Tyler, until now. So it was a pleasant kind of like, wow, this is cool. And I'm surprised they didn't do it in an age where everything's a reboot, a remake, and all that.
Yeah, me too, man. Once you kind of read the concept, you're like, oh man, that's so obvious. Like, why doesn't this exist? And Michael Kennedy is very good at that. Like, he did it with Freaky, with the kind of body swap kind of movies. But there's a handful of them. Like one of the references for us was this movie called Mr. Destiny, which is like this old Jim Belushi movie from the 90s, where he wishes that he had hit this baseball and becomes like, and then sees what his life was like if he like went pro and was married and had expansion and stuff, and so it's like this very kind of different thing, like the kind of nightmare reality of like a wish gone wrong, I think is something that comes back again and again in pop culture. And even It's a Wonderful Life itself is a riff on Christmas Carol. And so I thought that we should be about as beholden to It's a Wonderful Life as a Christmas Carol, or as it is to A Christmas Carol. So that way we were sort of free to kind of like not necessarily follow the same structure, and as long as we have that kind of something's inspired by that same sort of conceit, we can do almost anything we want. And we wanted to have the structure so that we spend a lot of time in the fun and games of this nightmare world, whereas It's a Wonderful Life doesn't really do that. You only see that kind of section of it right at the end.
Right.
And so we I think worked on like the balance of that and try to figure out what that's meant for structure. But people seem to really respond to the high concept of it.
No question. And the name lends itself, Life Knife. I mean, it just plays it perfectly together too. So you just had to, in that context. I was curious about the villain, the killer. What a unique look. He definitely, it stands out, with the kind of the white mask, and it's very polarizing looking, but also noticeable, in that way too. It's sometimes you see, in different movies, it's like, oh, they're as dark as possible, everything. It's hard to recognize the villain, but here it's like it's almost flashing at you, every time they come through with it. I'm guessing that was a choice. That was a purposeful choice, but it was a really interesting one because you never miss it, and exactly the moment when it pops up.
Totally. And this is the thing, is like a lot of typical slashers are, you had dark colors, usually because they're like supposed to be stalking people and hiding in the shadows and stuff. And we thought it'd be kind of fun if he's like, because he's written in the script as like wearing white, and so I thought it'd be kind of fun to try and hide him in snow and like next to white buildings and things like that. And because there's something very creepy to me about like kind of like a like a blank kind of neutral expression. And so that's what we sort of started to run towards, and we started to pull references and kind of try out different concepts. And I worked very closely with Mateo, our costume designer, to figure that stuff out. And we ultimately kind of found this sort of inspiration with kind of classic kind of angel tree toppers, a lot of which have these very blank faces. And we wanted it to be a bit of a texture kind of similar to like a frosted light bulb, so you can kind of see like Christmas lights reflected in it, and but on that it's just like stark white. And then also you can have it covered in blood and stuff like that, and it gives you some other opportunities. And then it just became a question of like, oh well, how does he move, and like who's going to be in the costume, and like how do we kind of split the difference of like the heights and stuff like that, and figuring out the logistical stuff. And then also we wanted the knife itself, because the movie's called It's a Wonderful Knife. We had to we're going to hang our hat on that very specifically, and so we wanted to have that be a unique kind of ornate kind of look. And we came up with that. Our production designer Tiana came up with that very winged kind of design, which has been a big part of what people have gravitated towards in the marketing and everything.
And it pops on camera too. It's like one thing you can think about, but how does it come off on camera? But it pops perfectly too. So the colors and everything just like really reflects nicely, because it's a cool pop that comes out of it. So it's a great blend of everything. It's some good people working on this.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. When it comes to endings, we don't have to give it away, but like, did you have multiple versions, or was it one way all along? Did you guys discuss different variations potentially? Because you can little bend some things here with the storyline of like, hey, life without me. I feel like you had a lot of creative freedom in a sense to also go with potential alternate endings here. In terms of that, how much discussion was it? Was this drawn out from the get-go? We're gonna go one direction and that's it.
Yeah, like originally it ended a little bit differently. We auditioned the idea that maybe once she gets back to her reality, that like maybe Bernie didn't remember, and like maybe they had to rebuild this relationship from scratch. And then we thought, well, no, we actually kind of liked the fact that like they've sort of like that she does remember, and like how does that work within the logic of things. And but what was kind of different about it was the kind of the climax, like originally that relationship between Winnie and Bernie was sort of like very close and intimate, but it was ultimately a friendship that sort of had an implied romance. And then we ended up like, once we got the performers together, Jess McLeod and Jane Widdop, and they brought such a good chemistry to it that their kind of romance really grew out of that, and was something that they very much kind of made authentic and kind of brought to the table. And I think it became kind of my favorite thing in the movie.
Interesting. That's cool. I like that setup. I think everything worked, ultimately. And, I feel like some things just come together, and in that way, it was very fitting in that. Before I let you go, you mentioned you do have some involvement in Five Nights at Freddy's. Anything you can share about it? Or, I mean, you mentioned it was a long-term process sort of thing too. That's another movie I'm excited about, very much so, coming out. Any tidbits you can leave the viewers with?
I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it later today, so I'm excited to check it out. But yeah, like we worked on it for a couple of years, and did a number of drafts, and sort of collaborated with Blumhouse and Scott to try and figure out kind of what the story could be. And I'm really excited to see Emma and her team were ultimately able to get it launched, and I'm really excited to see how they brought it together.
Yeah, that makes all of us, I think, in this case. So get that early screening in, and exciting time for you, I'd say. A lot of good stuff coming out, and perfect time of the year, Tyler. You really synced it up with the Halloween season, so that all works well.
Yeah, I got to strike all the irons hot. I got to look around for more work,
Hey, Christmas coming up. Hey, hopefully something's on the pipe again. So
yeah. What do I want under the Christmas tree is a new movie, like I got another, just hop it in.
There you go. Yeah, I've been a fan of your work. Love Tragedy Girls. One of my good friends, Nikki Whelan, was in it too. So
oh really? I love Nikki. She did such a good job on it. And yeah, I mean, I'm really I'm looking for something else to do with her. I think she's a really fun performer.
Oh, that's fantastic. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to catching up with you again. I'll be looking out for the next thing in line for you. But in the meantime, let's celebrate all the good stuff in this season.
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, take care, Tyler.
Bye.